Oh yeah.
Although it doesn't look like we're going to get married anytime soon.
All right, we're live. So hold your marital talk. Uh, hey, folks, Jordan with Status Coup. Hope everybody's having a good day on Monday, November 22nd, 2021, in these trying times here in the United Corporations of America. I thought to myself, oh, obviously I could do more Kyle Rittenhouse reaction. We did do that on Friday on Rockfin. So we posted some clips on my thoughts on the Rittenhouse verdict. A lot of people didn't like that. Let me tell you, this has really become a hot button cultural issue. Kyle Rittenhouse, shockingly, and can't wait for Tucker Carlson's slobbering over him tonight on Fox News in that exclusive interview. Tucker, who had a film crew following the young man through his criminal trial. Anyway, so I said, nah, I don't want to do that. Obviously, it's kind of Thanksgiving's coming up, so news tends to be a little slower. Tragic incident last night, which it seems another madman drove in to a crowd of people, this time in Wisconsin, which killed, by my last count, 5 people. So that's terrible, but not much for me to talk about there. But I thought to myself, Status Coup, we're kind of known for doing the unsexy stories. And I really thought, right now, something's happening really kind of underneath everybody's eyes. The media doesn't really cover it much because it's not sexy. That actually is going to move us further and further away from being a democracy, even though we're not really a democracy in the first place. So I thought, who better than Walker Bragman to bring on? Because I know you've written about
this. Who's unsexier than me?
Right. Who better to bring on than you to talk about this? Because people's eyes glaze over when you say gerrymandering. I don't think everybody gets what it is. I don't think really people get the urgency of it because it's just it's like gentrification. It's a very dry term, but essentially what it is basically making elections less and less important, less and less impactful. And it's essentially rigging. Our political system is rigged. It's basically rigging the geography in America to keep, in a lot of these states right now, to keep Republicans in control, even though the demographics are moving further and further away from Republicans. Democrats use gerrymandering too for their own political purposes. But I wanted to have you on, Walker, because you actually kind of predicted some of this. Colin, if you have it, this was in the Daily Poster, which Walker is a reporter at. The coming redistricting disaster. This is from August, so a couple months ago, but it's kind of proving true. Democrats missed a critical deadline to stop Republican gerrymandering, and now the political bloodletting will begin. So, Walker, why don't we start with what you were seeing over the summer, and what is it that Democrats did not do that now the chickens are coming home to roost?
So, in early August, so first of all, just so people understand, every 10 years there's a census, and after the census, congressional and state house districts are drawn, and that process has been weaponized to by elected officials, by people in power, to sort of pick who their voters are going to be. It's instead of you choosing who your representative is going to be, your representative is choosing you, or it's not exactly that simple, but that's essentially what it is politicians picking their voters. So in August, there was a deadline for the U.S. Census Bureau to give the census data to the states so that they could begin the process of redistricting. Now, before then, Democrats came into power in Washington in January. So you've had from January to August to implement some kind of reform to ban this process of partisan gerrymandering, which is, rigging districts so that they favor one party or another, to ban that process and make this election, make the redrawing process fair. They did not do it. They didn't do it. So when I wrote that article, I was talking to experts like David Daley, who was saying, like, this is going to be really bad. We already saw the last time the districts were drawn, Republicans weaponized the process and really disempowered Democratic voters in a historic fashion. And Democrats really only took back the House in 2018 because some of those maps ended up getting thrown out in state court. So Democrats missed the deadline to do anything about gerrymandering through the legislative process. I guess you could say that they could still technically do something now, but they're not going to. It's not really on the radar. It's not happening. So what we're looking at, Jordan, is we're looking at 10 years of ingrained Republican control in the House of Representatives and in the state legislatures. And you better believe that's going to have an impact on policy.
And I think this is really important. And again, oh, by the way, smash the like button. Let's get this out to as many people as possible. It's Thanksgiving week, so viewership might be a little lower, but you can share, like, all that good stuff. But why this is so important is I think we're beginning to see the limits of our federal electoral system, which I'm sure we'll get into later. So really what you got is local politics, even from state assembly, your state House of Representatives, your state Senate. Every city is different, city council, this and that, and obviously Congress and Senate. So essentially, when you have Republicans, and we haven't even gotten into the Republicans trying to get rid of electoral commissions, like Wisconsin right now, the Republicans are just trying to get rid of the bipartisan election committee, throw people in jail that are on the election committee that did not push, the election fraud stuff. So you have Republicans doing that, but you also have Republicans rigging it so that even if there are more Black voters or Latino voters or young voters in an area, they're basically just changing the line and to change that district to be more white, in some cases more rural, to rig elections. So you will, if you're a progressive-minded person, will have less chance of winning those districts, even if the majority of the people are supporting your candidate. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I mean, look, the numbers are pretty overwhelming. Like you can you can draw up a map so that a majority cannot elect their candidate, and that's fundamentally undemocratic. And we already have are already checks in our system against direct democracy, right? Like the Senate is not a democratic institution. The presidency is not a democratic institution. You have the Electoral College. The Senate, when I said the Senate, like you do directly elect your senators, but every state gets 2 of them. So it really empowers these small, low population states. The Supreme Court right now has 3 justices who were appointed by popular vote loser presidents. So now we're looking at the House of Representatives being a minoritarian institution. That is really troubling. That's really the last pillar of democracy in the US. Like you can vote. Sure, you can vote. Your vote isn't going to matter, but you can vote. Like right. in a very real way. People say this all the time. Like, oh, my vote doesn't matter. My vote doesn't matter. My vote doesn't matter. But with gerrymandering, it's literally true. Democrats in I think Pennsylvania in 2012 won like 51% of the vote, and they only captured something about like 5 of I believe 18 congressional seats. Mm-hmm. And in order to get 6, they would have needed a historic 56% of the vote, which hadn't happened. So like this is pretty staggering, and frankly, like it scares the hell out of me because I'm looking at this like we've got a very mobilized, far right now, increasingly willing to use violence. We have a breakdown of our democratic institutions and lawmakers who frankly are encouraging violence You have those laws coming out in Florida, like you can drive your car and hit protesters. Like that shit is terrifying.
Right.
I mean, this is really how democracy collapses in the United States, and Democrats needed to do something about it, and they didn't.
Right. Well, I also think there's two discussions to be had, because even without this, I don't really think we have a democracy. I mean, when you have public sentiment, 80% in a lot of these policies, 90% in favor of more progressive proposals, and the reaction in the White House, the Senate, Congress, even on the state levels, is let's strip it down essentially to giving you a Denny's coupon. I mean, we'll get into the infrastructure bill and the reconciliation deal. So I don't even know if we could. And there was I think it was a Princeton study years ago that basically said what I'm saying, that overwhelmingly, when the majority supports something, it almost never becomes policy. But when the minority supports something in terms of the actual business elite, usually that comes through in some way of policy. So I use the term democracy loose. But why I think this is so dangerous, and I want to actually focus on Georgia in specific. Obviously, Georgia was a big reason Biden won. Colin, if you have this, Georgia House okays congressional maps that add to Republican advantage. So this is obviously in part a response to Georgia going blue for the first time in a long, long time. But Georgia's one step closer to a new congressional redistricting map that bucks political and demographic trends to give Republicans another seat in the delegation. With a 96 to 68 vote, the Georgia House voted Monday to send the GOP-backed proposal to Governor Kemp, who also questionably won. But he actually questionably won because he basically purged hundreds of thousands of voters off the rolls as the state Secretary of State. So this was a real fraud, in my view, not the nonsense Trump is pushing. But GOP-backed proposal, Governor Kemp, before the end of the special election. The new map removes Democratic precincts in DeKalb County from Georgia's 6th congressional district and adds in heavily conservative parts of Cherokee County, all of Forsyth County and Dawson County, stretching the formerly suburban seat nearly 80 miles north of Atlanta and making it all but impassable for incumbent Congresswoman Lucy McBath to win. And I think Congresswoman Lucy McBath, she's the mother, I forget, I apologize. She's the mother, I believe, of one of the black men that were murdered by police. I just don't remember her son's name. So if somebody in the chat can find that, let me know. The neighboring 7th district's geographical footprint shrinks to include part of Gwinnett County and parts of John Creeks to create a Democratic-dominated seat that will likely see incumbent Congresswoman Carolyn Bordeaux face a primary challenge, blah, 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 blah. The law does not require U.S. House representatives to live in the district they represent, which is amazing. And current 9th District Congressman Andrew Clyde, a Republican, is also drawn out of his current seat and into a newly vacant 10th District. So, I mean, in reality, gerrymandering does favor Democrats in some areas. Right now, they're doing it in Nevada to favor Democrats. But I would say the overwhelming examples here are Republicans in Georgia, North Carolina, and a lot of these kind of swing states are changing the map for Congress, Senate, even local elections. And it does, I'd like to ask you, it also, in terms of, does it affect the presidential election at all, in your view?
It could, right? Let's say a presidential election goes to the House. And you have a gerrymandered Republican House. What do you know? What's going to happen? I wonder. Look, a majority of in 37 states, elected officials are in charge of redrawing the congressional maps, and 20 of those are Republican controlled. So yes, while Democrats do gerrymander and will be gerrymandering now, everybody's going to race to gerrymander. It is going to favor Republicans, and there's not really much Democrats can do. This is it's very bleak, especially if you look at what's happening with climate change and you feel that the country really needs to do more on climate change. this precludes that action. I mean, it really does. People are going to have to okay. Let me just step back for a second. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I don't want to say that nothing is going to happen. We're definitely screwed on climate change, because I don't want to yuck anybody's activism or tell them it's pointless. But the amount of work that will be required to do anything because of gerrymandering, because of what's happening, is just so much more. It's astronomically more. So anything is possible, but with a Republican Congress, I don't really know what, it's very bleak. It's very, very bleak. I mean, even with a Democratic Congress, it's hard enough, but like a Republican Congress for 10 years.
Right.
I
also want to look at Ohio here, which is obviously also, I mean, Trump won Ohio both times, but generally speaking, Ohio went for Obama. It was a swing state on the congressional level. There are districts that are safely blue. So this is Governor DeWine approves congressional map over objections of voting rights groups, Democrats. So this is just from a few days ago. And despite pleas from Democrats and voting rights groups for a veto, Governor DeWine on Saturday signed into law congressional redistricting map that will likely face court challenges. Republicans who crafted the map said it offers 7 competitive districts, divides only 12 counties, and keeps 7 of Ohio's 8 biggest cities whole. DeWine touted the same points. Quote, when compared to the other proposals offered from House and Senate caucuses, both Republican and Democrat, the map in the Senate Bill 258 makes the most progress to produce a fair, compact, and competitive map. So that's the Republican talking point. But Jen Miller, executive director of the League of Women Voters of Ohio, said it was a sad day for Ohio. Quote, this new congressional map is extremely partisan, gerrymandered, violating the Ohio Constitution and prioritizing short-sighted partisan considerations ahead of the right of all Ohio voters. Ohio voters deserve better, and we will not stop our efforts until gerrymandering finally comes to an end in Ohio. And then you see the map down there, which just seems like a very confusing mishmash. But I mean, this is pretty much happening everywhere. And what I think makes this particularly right now more troublesome is systematically you have Republicans trying to get rid of each state's election or their state's election chiefs on the county level, on the state level, who pushed through Biden's victory and certified it in those states. We've seen it in Wisconsin. We've seen it in other states that essentially they're trying to redraw their laws in their state to take control away from the county election officials and basically bring it to the state legislature, which coincidentally in these states are controlled by Republicans. Don't get it twisted, by the way, folks. I'm not saying Democrats aren't corrupt also. A lot of these states right now, it's the Republicans trying to get rid of election commissioners, secretaries of state, or take the power away from secretaries of state to put it back in the hands of the state legislature that just happened to be in Republican control, and with this extreme gerrymandering. So it kind of, again, I agree with you. I'm not telling people not to vote, but it kind of puts into question if it's just through the lines they're drawing, through the changes they're trying to make, if it becomes really, really rigged.
I mean, look, Jordan, this is between unlimited money, people being able to spend unlimited money on elections and this, and then the naturally undemocratic nature of our political institutions. I mean, this is really how democracy in America collapses. It is. And, it won't be, people fantasize about the end of American democracy being some big violent coup. It's not going to happen that way. It wouldn't happen that way. It would happen in courtrooms, and slowly and, over time, accepting the degradation of norms, accepting the degradation of our institutions. Somebody just stays in power a little too long, gets normalized, then gets cleared by the courts, or by the time anybody is says boo, it's too late. I mean, that's how it would happen, in my opinion. So, I mean, this is one step, this is one pillar down, but we've already seen, there are many pillars that have collapsed, and so it's very scary. It's really, really scary. And frankly, I mean, on the one hand, I'm terrified of what's happening. On the other hand, I'm completely outraged. And I feel like this is the for a lot of progressives, this is sort of what it's been, right? You're watching Democrats hold power for the first time really in a decade and do nothing with it. These guys aren't doing anything. They did nothing to stop this. They had months. They had months to do it. They had January, 10 days in January, February, March, April, May, June, July, and then August. They could have done something, and they didn't. Mm-hmm. It's staggering. It's a waste of time when we didn't have it. It's a waste of power. And I think there's an aspect of this, that Biden was never really comfortable with big sweeping changes, and this is the way that things have always been, and he's been a status quo politician his whole life. But there's also an element of just, cowardice, I think, that goes along with this, that even the people who did want to do something were afraid of bucking the party or challenging the order. And I mean, we all lose from it. It's not enough to just say, well, this is how it's always been, and it's just fucked. That's not enough.
Right. Well, I also think that it goes to the broader. I don't think the politicians are the ones in charge here. I think the donors like things this way. I think basically, you guys reported it. The lobbyists, the dark money groups, big pharma, you name it. I think they kind of want to keep a charade out there that the electoral system, you really could create change in this country. And I'm not trying to be a nihilist, because I do still believe in the electoral system. But if you look at it, I mean, Democrats ran on, if we get rid of Trump, we could do some really big things. And then right away, after getting rid of Trump, they preemptively just stripped everything down to the bare bone, completely unnecessarily, what they call negotiating against yourself. I mean, forget Manchin and Sinema right now. Biden didn't have to surrender on a $15 minimum wage. I wouldn't even call it surrender, because he didn't even enter the fight in the first place. Yep. He didn't have to do that. They concocted this ridiculous thing about a parliamentarian. Public option. He ran on it. You never hear a word about it anymore. Down the list, police reform. They basically, their idea of reform removed qualified immunity out of police reform, which was basically the teeth of it, qualified immunity, so that police officers could be held civilly liable. And then you get down to this infrastructure deal. 2 years ago, experts on infrastructure said to keep pace with the crumbling infrastructure, we needed $3 trillion. Democrats going around like cheerleading $500 billion in new money. That's really a privatization scheme, this infrastructure deal. I mean, yeah, there will be bridges built and some improvements, but a Band-Aid to the proportion of the problem plus
Jordan, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that is something that, a lot of the progressive dialogue now has sort of devolved, I think, a little bit into too much about talking points and not enough about particulars. That might just be me, but I think that we need to be talking about the fact that even when public services are, sorry, that's my opt-out alarm to update the opt-out app. But even when public services are funded under democratic legislation, a lot of the way that they're administered is through private intermediaries. And And that matters. That is something we should be talking about. It's wasteful. It's unaccountable. It's just outsourcing things that government should be doing by itself. We need to I've been saying it for a long time, but we need to reimagine the role of our federal government in our society. And part of that means that government needs to govern again and do the things that it used to do. It needs to administer its own programs. The Department of Energy, every single one of its programs is administered by private intermediaries. That's outrageous. It's outrageous. I mean, we do still live in the America that Ronald Reagan broke.
Right.
So thank you for bringing that up.
What do you think also on this transformational deal that we're being fed by Nancy Pelosi, the reconciliation deal that at this point, if it passes, maybe you're talking $1.7 trillion. Forget the money for a second. 6 years of universal pre-K. That's kind of the signature of it. It's pretty good. But 4 weeks of leave, which is actually going through private insurance. So that's going to be a bureaucratic nightmare kind of a program. Then you have, Ro Khanna is talking that this is the huge affordable housing. Listen, I've been around the country, $150 billion for affordable housing. That's not transformational. That's half a Band-Aid. For the amount
also, affordable housing itself is neoliberalism.
Yes.
It's we need public housing, and there is funding, I think, for public housing in this bill. But like, people talk about affordable housing all the time, but affordable housing just means it goes to a private contractor who builds the housing. It stays below market rates for a certain number of years and then goes back to market rates. Like, affordable housing is not the answer. Public housing is. There's a great article about this where it was published. Is escaping me at the moment, but it's called like the myth of affordable housing or the enduring, something like that. So I'm sure you know what, Jordan, I'll send it to you. And if you want to put it in the description of the video when this is all over, you can do that. That might be a good way to do it. But that said, yeah, there's a lot of privatization in the Democrats' agenda. And I think that speaks to the fact that neoliberalism, this sort of zombie ideology, is still very powerful. And I don't know, man. I don't see that saving us from the crises that we're facing. This sort of leave it to the private sector. We saw this in the COVID response too, right? Like, everything was sort of encourage businesses to act right, do things, carrots, not sticks.
Well, talking about carrots and sticks, the most important part of the bill, which the climate proposals that they're again talking about being transformational, it's like $500 billion in new money. But if you look underneath the hood, it's all like tax credits and incentives and this neoliberalism that none of it has teeth. None of it. The only thing that did have teeth, which was if utilities companies did not start shifting over to renewables at a certain pace, they would be fined. That, to me, that didn't even go far enough. But that was stripped out because Joe Manchin demanded it to be stripped out, and money is going to go into it towards carbon capture, which climate experts will tell you is the most wasteful, most expensive thing you could do. Because essentially the government is going to subsidize installing carbon capture equipment on coal plants in West Virginia for Joe Manchin. The whole thing,
which will only bring their emissions down to what natural gas, plants have. It's pretty bleak. It is pretty bleak. And by the way, the affordable housing article is in the New Republic. And it's called The Enduring Fiction of Affordable Housing. And I recommend that everybody who's watching this read it. It is a fascinating read by Tracy Jean Rosenthal. And it's not super long either. It came out in April 2021. Mm-hmm. So the carbon capture thing is real. They're funding this research that into, and look, maybe drawing carbon out of the atmosphere, great. Great. If you can get it to scale, wonderful. But you can't. I mean, that alone. First of all, it's not a proven technology. It's not capable of doing what it needs to do right now. And I don't know. I want to be more hopeful for the people watching this, because, if you and I aren't hopeful, we spend our entire days plugged into this stuff. And if we're not hopeful, then the people that, need to get active might toss up their hands and say, it's not worth it.
Well, I think there are hopeful things going on, which we could get to. But I also want to talk about, there's the policy and then there's the movement. And I think that the movement, and you and I were talking about this on the phone earlier, like, I've never been one of these people that does hashtag fraud squad. I don't think it's helpful. But I could clearly say, I think it's not just AOC. I think progressives, or whomever considers themselves progressives in elected office right now, are I don't know if they know who they're dealing with. I really don't. I don't know if they've ever heard bringing a spoon to a knife fight, but in my view, if the people that you're expecting to basically be your negotiators, like we're expecting them to be our negotiators in terms of the left, they're not good negotiators because they don't know how to go on offense. I'll give you an example. I mean, from the beginning, Bernie could have and should have said, I'm not going to even begin speaking with Joe Manchin or anybody until vision, hearing, and dental are in it, period. That's my red line. Call me when that's in there. I mean, I know the Tea Party comparisons come up a lot, but that's really how that's good. Right. That's how you negotiate. And you know what? Biden needs this. Biden desperately needed this. I mean, the progressives want it, but Biden needs some signature something, because people, a $1,400 check didn't do it, obviously. Go ask, Terry McAuliffe and others. So Bernie, from the beginning, should have said, respectfully, Biden might have won the primary, but every state overwhelmingly supported Medicare for all, including Mississippi, by the way, had majority support in every Democratic primary. So I'm demanding Medicare expansion. I'm not the president, so I'm not demanding Medicare for all. I'm expanding Medicare expansion. And they should have, and I don't understand, Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema, they haven't really, other than trends on social media, there hasn't been a lot of pressure on them. These progressives chose not to go on offense in forms of holding rallies in West Virginia, paid ads. They
Heckle them everywhere they go. Do not let these people have a moment of peace. Be outside their homes, protesting, rallying. Go to their offices, bang on the doors, make them, let these people know that you're there. That's the kind of pressure that needs to happen. Shout them down at their at their town hall meetings. I'm sorry, but fuck your decorum. These are life and death issues, and they should be treated that way. And Manchin and Sinema are essentially condemning all of us because they either want to get industry cash, or they want a nice cushy lobbying job when they leave office, or whatever I don't care. They are betraying the American people, and they should be treated accordingly. I've no sympathy for the people who are like, but heckling Sinema in the bathroom is bad. No, it isn't. These people aren't committing violence against them. They're not threatening them with violence. They're telling them what they think. And that's the foundation of democracy.
And I also think, Bernie, listen, I know he's 80 years old, probably tired of 5 years of campaigning at an old age, 40 years of fighting these fights. But at the end of the day, he's not even following his theory of change. His theory of change is, no, I'm not going to negotiate with Mitch McConnell if I was to become president. I'm going to tell him to look outside the window. Well, there's still a massive army. It's not like he ran for president 5 years ago. His last campaign was a year ago. there's still a huge army of activists and people who care that right now are very cynical and right now feel lost in the wilderness that can be activated. Same goes for AOC, Rashida Tlaib, all these people. The progressive base can be activated if you are fighting. And I've seen AOC and others in these interviews on CNN, on Sunday morning shows, and they don't even call it what it is. I mean, they very, very gingerly walk around that Joe Manchin is literally taking this blood money right now, that Kirsten Sinema is literally fundraising in Paris, during this.
Right. Yeah. Like these people are putting their own interests before the good of the country. They're betraying their constituents. And it's intolerable. We have a very limited window with which to deal with anything at all. Especially now with gerrymandering, bringing us back. But especially now with gerrymandering, we have a very limited amount of time with which to get anything done for the next decade, probably the next decade. So we don't have time to, I'm sorry, but taking a job on K Street, we don't have time to humor you. You're an elected official. Show the people some fealty, or we're going to be outside your door. We're going to be outside your home, and we're going to heckle you in the streets. We're going to come up to you in restaurants. We're going to come up to you when you go out for a walk, when you try to have a moment of peace. We're going to be there. You're going to hear from us.
Right. Well,
and I don't see any public officials advocating that, because they're like, well, that's don't want to be accused of inciting violence, but words aren't violence.
Right. I also think there's a basic miscalculation, and I use Ro Khanna only because he said some of these things when I interviewed him. And I appreciate him coming on. It's more than others elected progressives are doing. He seems to be the only one that's even willing to go on shows, so deserves credit at least for that. But
he is very responsive.
But it seems to me, the difference between the Tea Party and, the Progressive Caucus or whatever, and the Squad, is the Tea Party just doesn't, they embrace nothing happening. They'd rather nothing happen than modest incremental anything. Whereas the Squad, I think Biden
by the way, that position is easier.
Right.
But it is their credit, we give them credit for getting a lot of what they want done, but it's easier to do that stuff. To do nothing or dismantle, it's a lot easier than getting change.
Right. But the Squad and I think Roe, Pramila Jayapal, all of them, Bernie's, their mentality is, well, I'm not going to say no to universal pre-K. I'm not going to say no, even if these things are small, little singles rather than anything structural. And we'll fight another day for the rest. But that's the problem. When you continually cave to that mindset of let's fight. Ultimately, we'll have to take what we can get now, and then we'll fight another day. Well, you're always going to be fighting another day in 2 years and 4 years and 6 years and 10 years as the planet further burns, as income inequality worsens, because you're essentially signing up for that paradigm of, no, let's not aggressively fight now and say, no, this is not enough. None of this is enough. And you're screwing the people. Let's just take a W now, go run on it so we can stay in office. And then we'll fight, for more later, but later is never going to come. That's the problem. It's always going to be this way. If they don't realize now, no, we need to actually fight aggressively now for more. And also they need to be willing to take the heat for the media, because you're going to be called pariahs and political arsonists. But the truth is, the media is going to paint you negatively either way. So you might as well really go on the offense. So I think they played this completely wrong. Frankly, every single media interview they did, they should have been turning around and saying, wait a minute, Anderson. Wait a minute, Cuomo. Wait a minute. What's moderate? What's moderate about literally stripping life-saving climate proposals out of a bill while raking in millions of dollars from a coal company? How do you define that as moderate? Can you imagine if any of them said that in an interview? Can you imagine if any of them said, wait a minute, what is moderate about the United States? We're the wealthiest country on earth. Us being the only civilized country that has no paid leave policy. Why would that be moderate? Like literally Karl Rove chalkboard style, bring a chalkboard and say, hey, here's West Virginia's poverty rate. It's the second worst in the country. Here's West Virginia's cancer rate. I think it's one of the worst in the country. Like, these are not hard things if you know how to present, but they just, I don't know, they don't seem willing to do it.
I think the idea, and I think there's another aspect to this that should be mentioned, and that is that when you only achieve a very little victory, it's easy to roll that back and more. So, like, you know, when the pendulum swings the other way, when Republicans take power, like if your accomplishments are so small, they get undone. I mean, much of Obama's legacy. Now, granted, a lot of that was done by executive order because of gerrymandering, didn't control Congress for more than he had 2 years, and then that was it. Frankly, we're about to see the same thing happen to Biden. Funny how history repeats itself. Funny how the vice president of the guy who got his ass kicked by gerrymandering last time, that he fell asleep on the job and got his ass kicked, is doing the same thing, falling asleep on the job and getting his ass kicked. It's just, it would be funny if it weren't so incredibly frustrating. But yeah, so small accomplishments mean, you take one step to the left, and then the right comes in and takes 2 steps back. 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
It's unreal. So obviously we're not political prognosticators here, but what do you think is kind of the next steps here? Because to me, it seems to me if they pass this extremely scaled down, stripped down bill, they'll run on it. I don't know if it's going to make a big difference in 2022. There's
shit.
Yeah.
Right. It's not. They can try. You can try, but you can't overcome. You can't beat a gerrymander.
Right.
Can't do it. You can organize. Can't beat it.
So basically, with these rigged electoral lines, you see Republicans taking over bigly, shall we say, in 2022, and then we have divided White House, first Congress for about a year and a half, and it's either going to be Biden half consciously running again, or one of these, JV squad, Harris or Pete, running basically on nothing, but a lot of, kind of vague woke language. And I see a President DeSantis if that were the case.
I don't think Democrats really, I think they're about to get wiped out. I think that the Democratic Party generally is just kind of finished for the foreseeable. I mean, how do you Democrats, first of all, Democrats win elections by saying we are the Democrats and this is what we do. But when disengaged people or people that don't have the time, like they'll vote party line and because they don't want the Republicans, but they haven't done anything. And the problem is endemic to the party. It goes top down. They really are just feckless, useless. If this bill passes, great. I don't know if it will. But if it does, universal pre-K is good. It is definitely good. There are good things. And frankly, all the legislation that they do pass, there is something good about all of it. It's just not enough good to warrant the bad, or warrant the small scale. And so I don't know. I want to be hopeful, and I want to tell people that getting active and involved, maybe at the local level, maybe at the state level, like that still matters. That's still important. Continuing to fight for control of your government is still important, because ultimately government is the only vehicle we have in the fight against climate change that can actually do something.
Right.
It is the only instrument capable of doing something about climate change. So people should stay active. They should get out in the street, but frankly, people should be out in the street. And I see a comment here. Am I going to tell people to vote for Biden in 2024 like I did in 20? I didn't tell people who to fucking vote for. Jesus Christ.
You know, I want to address that comment.
Really,
will you
like,
allow me?
Oh my God.
Allow me to address that. You know, I see a lot of people. It's really funny to me. There's so many people who have bitched and bitched and bitched about feeling that they've been voter shamed if they didn't vote for Hillary or they didn't vote for Biden, and like bitching that they were voter shamed. But those same exact people like love to try and voter shame other people. It's just a bizarre contradiction and hypocrisy. And I get it all the time because I voted for Biden. I told the audience I was going to do it.
Your vote in a general election in New York, where you live and I live, does not matter.
But it's not. But it's not even about that. People like, and I didn't change my coverage. I kept on covering him critically, this and that. But people complain that they've been voter shamed because they didn't vote for Hillary or Biden, but then turn around and say, well, you voted for him, Jordan, when I report accurately or criticize him on it. It's like, first of all, like, fuck off. You vote for who you want. I'll vote for whoever. I don't need to justify it to you who I vote for. It's like this superiority complex a lot of people now have because like things aren't turning out well. Well, you voted for it. Yeah, I told you why I voted for it. More importantly, there's no video of me ever telling you to vote for Joe Biden. None. I've never told anyone how to vote. I said, hey, I'm a Bernie guy. I support Bernie. I didn't like hold up pins, vote for Bernie. I did not vote for Hillary in 2016. I got a lot of shit for that. But I didn't tell you not to vote for Hillary if you wanted to vote for Hillary. So I'd like to see that trend stopping because like you're not accomplishing anything by being like, well, you voted for this, Jordan or Walker. Just like Walker didn't tell you. I mean, I never saw you like you have to vote for Biden. And I never told anyone.
Look, let me say it clearly now. I don't care who you vote for. Your vote is your vote. My vote is my vote. And frankly, all I can do is tell you what the facts are. Frankly, not for nothing, but a lot of the things that people, talk about, as their reasons for opposing Biden are stories that I dug up in the first place. I've continued to cover this administration, I think fairly. And that's just where I'm at. Look, I live in New York and I will vote however I feel comfortable voting or, whatever. It doesn't change anything. Right? Like,
no, it's just people want to feel it. Somebody said it. It's a moral superiority thing. They want to say, and you want to know something? I said it then, and I'll say it now. You know what? I might have seen things you didn't see. Me, Jordan, might have seen things that the people saying that didn't see. Because I don't think those people were at a rally like a couple days before the election in Pennsylvania with 10,000 people not wearing a mask, where Donald Trump had literally on the television. This was at the height of the pandemic. We're talking the height of the pandemic. Donald Trump had on the big prompter, OANN. You know what OANN is? Like, yep. It's Fox News times 100. And Donald Trump then on stage, I never did the whole Trump Hitler stuff. Donald Trump on stage literally saying shit that you could have heard out of 1930s Germany. So for me, I said, you want to know something? I'd rather deal with Joe Biden, Neera Tanden, and Wall Street than Trump, Rudy Giuliani, QAnon, and whatever the hell comes
at
next.
At least for 4 more years, right?
Right. So that was my decision, not because I like Biden. Of course, I don't like Biden, but because I was seeing stuff on the road and compared to what I saw in because I covered both Trump campaigns, so I saw the evolution in 2016. To me, dangerous, but a little bit more of a carnival show, to 2020, dangerous and getting worse to the point where if this man was reelected, you think he was joking that he wanted more than 2 terms? Do you think he was joking that he would have tried to change things to get more than 2 terms? Right. So to me, I have there's a lot of problems on the online and Twitter culture right now.
I'll tell
But
you
yeah.
exactly when I decided that I was going to vote for Biden. It was because of his rhetoric that he was like, well, maybe I'll get 3 terms, and if I figured a larger popular vote margin is still better. But also, setting that aside, Trump and the Republicans were pushing for a corporate liability shield during COVID. What that means for regular people watching this is that if you work in an office or at a job that requires you to go to a job site, your employer could force you back into the office without taking adequate precautions in terms of COVID. And you would have no recourse if you got sick due to outside of their willful, misconduct. You would have no recourse legally. And my fiance works in an office building in Manhattan. So yeah, I mean, this stuff has a direct impact. And as bad as the Democrats have been on COVID, there is not a corporate liability shield in place, and they have not been pushing it. So that is a notable difference. That is something that matters.
There is in general a corporate liability shield for Amazon and Starbucks and all these terrible Neanderthal corporations who get to do whatever they want, including heinous union busting that I've been covering. But I get your point as far as COVID.
It's not on. There's nothing on the books that gives corporations a liability weight. Like you can't go to court with them barring their willful misconduct. You cannot take them to court over COVID risk. That right. and harm from COVID. Right. That's that is a real difference. Biden's really, I think, failing as a president, but anything to keep that off the books.
Yeah, I just, to me, it's less, to me, honestly, yeah, I'm going to say this, and it might get me in trouble, but I don't really care. There's really there's a sickness going on right now mentally. I don't mean mental illness. I just mean a toxic mental development I believe online, but also on the left, that it's like there's a moral superiority complex, but B, this rapid fire unsubscribe if like a host that you normally watch disagrees with you on something. Like I saw it, for example, Graham Elwood and I did a interview the other day on the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict. And I basically took the nuanced view, and Graham did too, that, according to the law in Wisconsin, which that specific state's law is very, very favorable to people claiming self-defense. According to the law, yeah, I think it could be argued that it was self-defense. But to me, the broader problem is not the broader discussion is not about whether it's self-defense or not. It's about this is inviting political vigilantism. This is basically making it okay that a 17-year-old or any age decided, you know what, I'm going to leave my house and go be the protector and deputize myself to protect the community. That might, in this case, have been self-defense because he was being chased. But the broader implications of that is this is in a really increasingly hotter and hotter political temperature where political violence is increasing. This is basically deputizing or allowing people to get a complex to deputize themselves, to go to protests, carry bazooka guns, and if you feel even a hint of anything, shoot. And oh my God, I was getting, oh, Jordan, unsubscribe, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, there's really a snowflake thing developing and really a Fox News mentality, Walker, because this is the mentality of a Fox News viewer, that if your views aren't validated 1000% at all times, and the feedback loop isn't feeding you what you want 24/7, I'm just changing the channel. And I see that developing, and I've seen it for years actually on the left, but it's only gotten worse recently, where even, people that if your host or your news outlet, if they offer you something that's not what you believe, or it doesn't validate your existing views, unsubscribing, or, well, you voted for it, Jordan, and, here, I'm going to kick you in the ass. And I think that's bad, because we should, online or anywhere, it's good and healthy to disagree sometimes. It's good and healthy to disagree sometimes. And when you get to a point where like, you're going to, not just Status Coup, anywhere, that you're basically going to like unsubscribe if a video upsets you, or a host has a take that's different than you, or you think a host is factually wrong on something. I just think we're headed for the dark days intellectually if that trend continues.
Look, I don't know. I feel like, and I'm younger than you, and my political evolution, I think, is more in recent memory. I mean, even just by a few years. But I think that in 2016, I was very much, I understood that sentiment. Like, oh, this person doesn't agree. Like, how could this person support, Hillary over Bernie? And oh my gosh, this is really terrible, and they're terrible, and whatever, write them off. But as I have gotten older and more, and done more journalism, done more reporting, and frankly, through this pandemic, in politics, you never know who you're going to be aligned with from one day to the next. I mean, your ideology doesn't have to change for you to agree with somebody else who you completely disagree with on, whatever. I disagreed with you in 2020. I disagreed with you in 2016. But like take the pandemic, for example. And how many people on the left who I was shoulder to shoulder with in terms of, I supported Jill Stein. I was, very anti-Hillary Clinton, totally in lockstep with them in 2016, who are now anti-vaxxers.
Yep.
Frankly. And
there's actually, Walker, I don't know if you know this. I don't know if you know this, Walker, but there's actually a good portion of Bernie 2016 people that slipped into QAnon.
I did not know that. And that's really frustrating.
Yeah.
But like this, I think it's important to, I'm not going to say, certain people, whatever, like Neera Tanden, like people say, don't burn bridges. No. You can write off Neera Tanden 100%. But frankly, when it comes to like politics generally and people, just keep an open mind, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like, I now find myself just pulling my hair out, like, oh my God, like at these folks who are like, oh, the lockdowns in New Zealand are an assault on freedom and we can't do that shit. It's like New Zealand has had like 2 COVID deaths in the last year. We've had like, 100,000, hundreds of thousands. Like what? There's no compare. Like, and they're open more frequently than we are because they're able to control the virus. It's just, it's just, I don't know.
I think that what's going on in multiple levels of America, both in the streets, politically, and online, unfortunately, is the oldest book on the shelf. It's divide and conquer, and it's sad. I've seen this in movements too. I mean, I saw this at Standing Rock. I've seen this in Flint. Like reporting on the ground all over the country, I've seen where movements and activist networks, division steeps in. Some of that's just organic, where differences breed. Some of it is forced, where there's literally people that go into activist communities and movements to sow division, including intelligence agencies. That's also happened. But I'm seeing, I just think in general, people need to realize that you don't have to always agree with each other. I mean, there's a difference between disagreements on issues and a difference in values, right? So like Neera Tanden and myself and Walker, we have different values. So yeah, you can bash Neera Tanden. I'm okay with that. But I think people need to take the temperature down a little bit online, and also just like the superiority complex of, oh, you voted for this, or you told people to vote for Biden, when like in reality, no, we didn't. We didn't tell you to vote for anyone. I explicitly said, this is what I'm doing. You do whatever you want. I would never tell anyone to vote for Trump. But I just think, unfortunately, I've seen it. And, there are people that I used to respect on the left that have big platforms that I don't know what the hell they're doing now. They've become radicalized themselves and are just completely different people. These hosts on Twitter, on YouTube, they've become anti-vaxxers. They've become
that to me is just, I mean, Frank, it's unforgivable. Like people are dying. People are fucking dying. and you're out there trying for clicks or whatever, or trying to, because you want to buck the mainstream, you're becoming you're an anti-vaxxer. Like, fuck you.
Well, I also think, and like, I don't know if like people get this or not, but I've seen people that like, because they're anti-big pharma and anti-establishment, they think everything is in the lens of big pharma and establishment. So like a vaccine, wait, big pharma is going to make money off of this. So no, the vaccine, no, because it's big pharma. But like, yeah, but big pharma like can't make money if it doesn't work.
Also, that's what Feldman was saying. The big scandal here isn't, when the last time I was on with Justin Feldman over the summer, when he said the big scandal with pharma isn't that they're injecting people with things that don't work. It's that they have this wonderful technology and they're keeping it to themselves.
Yes.
Frankly, should nationalize those companies.
Right. I think the biggest scandal is Biden hasn't mandated that. And Biden has listened to Bill Gates and other fuckers who have said, no, we need to keep patent protection. I mean, America had the capacity to, or could have allowed other countries that were ready to go to manufacture the vaccines, but we're not allowed to. And Biden kind of hemmed and hawed on that for a very long time.
And you hear about this new COVID pill, by the way? That's an effective treatment against COVID, over the counter or whatever. And the U.S. is
good luck affording it.
Is buying like what is it? Like 1 billion doses or whatever, 500 or not 1 billion doses, 1 billion treatments at $500 a pop, and the treatment is like 2 pills, comes down to like $250 a pill. Like we're being gouged. That's
fortunately, if I needed it, I could afford it. Most people can't. And it's insane. It really is an economic Hunger Games. If you got the money, great. If you don't, well, what are you going to do? So yeah, but we could go on forever. I don't want to keep you because I know you're working on a story. Thank you, Walker Bragman, for making gerrymandering sexy again. And I also hope people, even though Walker and I were both very Debbie Downer in this discussion, you can't just give up the fight. I don't believe in that. I think a lot of people are pushing that message of just wallow in your cynicism. I'm cynical. I feel pretty damn cynical now. Sometimes I feel when I'm on the road, like, why the fuck am I even bother doing this? Nothing's changing. I break stories. I break important stories, but nothing changes. I think there's something to be said for, the fight is virtuous. And whether you're a journalist, an activist, or just somebody in their underwear, keep on. We have to keep fighting, because really where the global elites, where the donors want the masses, is to just accept the rot, accept the corruption, accept that the deck is stacked, and do nothing.
The fight wouldn't be so hard if it weren't the right fight to be fighting.
Right. Absolutely. Walker, where can people find your wonderful underrated work?
You can read the Daily Poster. We've got a great team of journalists, and you can follow me on Twitter, which is just at Walker Bragman. So yeah, as you said, Jordan, people have to stay active. You have to stay fighting, and that's awesome. This is what this is why I'm so impressed by like Bernie Sanders, just as a human being, that he has seen. We're not winning. We're not right now. We're not winning, and it's been that way for decades, really, as long as he's been in politics, and he's continued to fight anyway. And I don't think he always gets it right. We were talking about today how he doesn't always get it right, and I think his strategy now is pretty inadequate. But the fact that this guy can keep getting up in the morning and keep doing what he's doing after all that time, defeat after defeat after defeat, like that's where it really matters. Right.
Right.
We will lose more often than we will win until we don't.
Right. I agree.
So, thanks for having me on, as always.
Appreciate it, man. Take care.
You too.
So that was Walker Bragman of the Daily Poster. Don't go anywhere. Got a couple announcements. Might also might want to take some questions, comments, concerns. Talk to the masses. Tomorrow night, before Thanksgiving, we're going to do a members call. So if you're a Status Coup member, make sure you clear your turkey or calendar tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Eastern. StatusCoup.com/join will be our monthly members only call. If you're a member, you get the link through Zoom. You could sign up and become a member. This is one of the perks of being a Status Coup member. Membership is how we grow. We need to keep growing our membership in order to fund the on-the-ground reporting that, as far as I know, we're one of the few doing on-the-ground reporting anymore. So if you join as a member, you will get the link through Zoom shortly before 7 o'clock Eastern time. Usually we go about an hour or two. So we'll be doing it tomorrow night. It is through Zoom, but you don't have to be on camera if you don't want to. You could keep your camera off and just listen. You could ask questions in the chat. So we'll be doing the members call tomorrow night, statuscoup.com/join. Also, what else did I want to say? That's for patrons too. So if you're a member, patron, you get the same perks. So definitely sign up, statuscoup.com/join. The year is winding down now, so we definitely want to keep growing our membership because 2022, there's going to be a lot to cover. Frankly, if we can grow, I'd like to expand. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. It's just become too much for me, the workload. Trying to go live every single day. I mean, that's a job on its own. And like trying to do a good show and trying to research for the show on top of I work on investigative stories in the background. So right now I'm working on a Flint story that's taking up most of my time and is like extremely time consuming. So it's very difficult to do the investigative reporting plus doing daily content. Like most of the YouTubers that you might follow just do the video, just do, their channel and put together videos and stuff. They're not like reporting and investigating anything on the side. So I've always kind of done this double the work. And it's become a lot. So I'm hoping as we go forward, we'll be able to find somebody, in a reporter role that could kind of do a mix of everything, like do live streams. So it's not just me doing the live streams, but if I'm working on a story, I have somebody kind of as my backup to do the live streams, somebody that eventually we could put out in the field themselves and they could go do a reporting trip. So I think Status Coup is only going to grow if it's beyond just me. Can't just be me. We want to grow other faces too. I definitely am hoping that we could expand, but the only way to expand is through money. And we don't take money from the big banks, the fossil fuckers, the big pharma, big real estate, Silicon Valley, military industrial complex. We don't want their money. We're not going to take their money. So the only way we can expand is through membership. So I hope you will continue supporting us. I hope you'll sign up as a member before tomorrow night so you can join the members call. We'll do some social media posts and reminders about the member call tomorrow night. My wife says our dog could be your international reporter because my dog Millie is from Russia. From Russia. I call her Moscow Millie. You should go follow Millie's Instagram, by the way. Put her Instagram handle in the chat. Put the Instagram handle in the chat. Rockfin people can get on Rockfin if you can. We are on Rockfin. We do a weekly exclusive live stream on Rockfin. You might have not known that. So you could go to our premium channel. You have to be a Rockfin premium member to watch our Rockfin exclusive. We usually are Fridays on Rockfin. We'll probably do it Wednesday this week on Rockfin. Our exclusive weekly show on Rockfin we'll probably do Wednesday this week because Thanksgiving's Thursday. Myself, Colin, probably going to take off Friday after Thanksgiving. So definitely sign up. StatusCoup.com/join. Elvira, how old is Status Coup? We started this in 2018. So that's 2019, 2020, 2021. We're almost 4 years old. And to tell you the truth, in 4 years, we've accomplished a lot. With not a lot of resources, where it was only me and Jen, and then we added Colin, as I announced as I announced last week, Jen's no longer with us, so it's now Colin and I. But we've accomplished a lot with not a lot of hands and not a lot of bodies. And to tell you the truth, I don't know how long that is sustainable, how sustainable that is long-term, because I'm only one person and I'm kind of burning out, trying to do the on-the-ground reporting, getting the content, pumping content out on a daily basis, written stories for Substack. It's a lot. It's a lot for one person, plus a lot of business stuff behind the scenes that you don't see and you don't have to see. But there's a lot of stuff on the business end, on top of the live streams, on top of the investigative reporting, on top of written stories for Substack. It all becomes a lot. So we got to expand. We got to grow, because at a certain point, one person, can't do so much and stay healthy physically and mentally. So Millie is adorable. How did you get her? We adopted Millie. So definitely go to Millie's Instagram. We're trying to grow our following. Just saying. And let me tell you, my wife, she really dedicates her time to building, to making videos for Millie's Instagram, photos. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to build a doggy Instagram channel. So definitely go check out. I think it's From Millie with Love. Is it From Millie with Love is her Instagram channel. So become a Status Coup member first, and then From Millie with Love is the Instagram channel. So let me read a couple things before I go. A couple questions if you have any. I'm always worried you're working yourself too hard, Jordan. Kat, I am working myself too hard. You could ask my wife. Just this weekend, for example. I don't really get weekends. I can't remember the last time I've had a full weekend. I won't get into it, but, activists reached out to me on the weekend. On Saturday, Amazon workers reached out to me, a breaking story, and I was chasing that down. And before you know it, a couple hours on your weekend, you're spending working on a story. That one hasn't panned out yet. A worker got fired who was trying to organize and unionize at Amazon, got fired. So I was trying to get that worker and do an interview. So I'm constantly working, and it's just too much. So I'm hoping we could expand in the new year. Thank you for the reminder on the super chats. Rock Nevo, new YouTube member. Welcome, Rock. Chris, $2. China spent 50 trillion over 10 years, but 500 billion is too much. Yep, you got it. China spent 50 trillion and we are spending 500 billion. 500 billion. It is a joke. D Nord, $20. Thanks, D Nord. I appreciate it. Double K, $9.99. I thank you. Cat Faye Helen, $2 for the swear jar. Thank you very much. I also want to make sure welcome new Status Coup member Justin the other day and Daniel the other day. So that's 2 new members. But I hope we get some more people signing up as members before the members call tomorrow night. Would love to have as many of you tomorrow as possible. 7 o'clock Eastern. We'll probably go for an hour or two. And it should be fun. So thank you for watching. I hope to see you on the members call tomorrow. I'm pretty sure I'll be live before the members call. But I really hope we have as many of you tomorrow. And statuscoup.com/join, statuscoup.com/join to become a member. And you will get the link to the members call once you join. And by the way, if you're a new member, how to see our member content, you go to statuscoupmember.com. That's statuscoupmember.com. And you hover over members. Is it member? Let me see. I want to tell you the right thing. statuscoupmember.com. Yeah. So you go and then you hover over members and you'll see member content there. So that's all I got. Oh, thank you, Survivor Sanctuary. $5 in the super chat. Appreciate it. Thank you for the super chat. And I will see you guys tomorrow and sign up so you can join our members call, statuscoup.com/join. Take care.